mics. All right. All right. Okay. All right. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us this evening for the Webster Conservation Commission of the Town of Webster on this Thursday evening, June 8th, 2023, in the Board of Selectmen's meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:35. All right, so I want to make a few announcements. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded. I also want to make a few reminders and notes here. Please be advised that Karen Bartholomew of 30 Point Pleasant Road, Webster, Mass. has notified me, the chairman, via email that she will be recording tonight's meeting for her personal use. This meeting is being recorded by the town. A few other notes here. These are only complaints. Only the Attorney General's office can determine if there is a violation. No public input will be allowed. The draft reviews and draft responses are based on the language filed with the complaint and existing public records. So with that, everyone has the agenda in front of us. We have action items A through E. These are all open meeting law complaints. 4 are by Karen Bartholomew, 1 by Kristen Valeri. So I would like to put it out to the commission on, do we want to go through each one? We are acknowledging the receipt of the violation, and we are voting to authorize the staff, be it Dawn Portman, our agent, or Ann Morgan, our Director of Economic Development and Planning, to reply to the Attorney General's office. So do we want to go through each one and discuss it? Do we want to go through each one and vote to issue the receipt of it and authorize staff to reply?
My recommendation would be to vote one by one on each individual basis. And just a point of order, it's the response has to go to the complainant as well as to the Attorney General's office.
Okay. All right. So the complainant and the Attorney General's office, so I stand corrected on that. I apologize. All right. So Commissioner Brown would like to go through each one. Is everyone else on board with that? Do we have a... Okay. All right. So first one, open meeting law complaint, Karen Bartholomew, public meeting procedure 24, Point Pleasant Road, acknowledgement, receipt, and violation, and vote to authorize staff to reply. This was continued from 6/5/23. Everyone should have a packet in front of them. If there are any specifics that you'd like to discuss, otherwise we just need to vote to acknowledgement, receipt, and have our staff issue authorize the staff to reply. Sorry.
Yeah, I think
Is there any discussion?
We need to read it in and discuss what the violation alleged is. And then according to the complaint instruction forms, we need to discuss that and provide what we feel are the remedies. So if the staff has already drafted what they feel that the reply should be, then that should be read in and voted upon at that point.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
through you.
Sure.
The outline that you have for each one of the complaints provides a violation review, which pulls out the issues of concern made in the complaint, and the action requested then takes the action requested by the complainant and then does provide a background and potentially a recommendation. But it's, again, based on the facts that were pulled out, so sometimes the action requested already has been answered through the violation review. So for staff to submit something to the complainant and to the Attorney General's office, it would basically, this would be what would go to them in letter format.
So, and just so I understand, then what would be the action recommended? Because I'm not seeing an action recommended here. And that's what the
You're
purpose
not
of.
required to recommend an action. You're required to respond to the complaint.
So I'm sorry. We're talking in circles. Our response to the complaint is what? Because
Your response to
I'm
the
seeing the
complaint is that
complaint.
we have seen the complaint, we have reviewed the action requested by the complainant, and then for you to provide information to the Attorney General's office to determine if an actual violation has occurred. You're not making a recommendation to the Attorney General's office. You're providing them with just the facts.
Okay, so just to take an imaginary scenario, if we believe as a commission that we violated an open meeting rule, not reflecting anything that's on our agenda, this is completely off the top of my head, then I think what I hear you saying is we have to say, yes, we received the complaint, and we agree that we made a mistake or disagree that we made a mistake.
That's not what we're being asked. We're being asked specifically, did we receive the complaint?
And we have to respond to it with potential actions. So just like any corrective,
No, that's the point. That the Attorney General will tell us what actions have to happen
No.
So-
if they feel there was a violation.
I'm going to jump in and just read directly from the open meeting law via complaint form under the second section of instructions for the public body that receives a complaint. Point number 1, chair must disseminate the complaint to the members of the public body. Point number 2, the public body must meet to review the complaint within 14 business days, usually 20 to 22 calendar days. Point number 3, after review but within 14 business days, the public body must respond to the complaint in writing and must send the complainant and a response and a description of any action of any action the public body has taken to address the allegations of the complaint. At the time, the body must send the Attorney General a copy of the complainant and a copy of the response. The public body may delegate this responsibility to an individual member of the public body, its counsel, or a staff member, but only after the public body has met to review the complaint. And point number 4 is, if a public body requires more time to review the complaint and respond, it may request an extension of time for good cause by contacting the Department of Open Government. So my interpretation of point number 3 is that we do have to make a recommendation of an action to take with our review. And that is part of the response that we send to the complainant, as well as forwarding it along with the original complaint to the Attorney General's office.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It's my understanding that you have to respond for any actions you have already taken or will be taking in the future to address the action requested. And you'll find on each one, there is some material for each one of those based on the listed complaints. So if you want to go through these, you will see that you have through your actions, not through staff interpretation, but through your actions at various meetings and through restructuring your agenda, you have actually already taken action to address some of this material, some of the issues in the complaint. And keep in mind that the complaints have to address anything that is involved with something that happened at an open meeting. Okay, so you'll find each one in here, and these are marked draft. You'll find that you've already actually addressed and taken action on some of these already.
I don't disagree that we may have already previously taken action, but our response must include what that action was.
It does. You'll find it in the drafts.
That's, I just want to confirm that
Yes.
that would be the action that we have to take or approve on.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to remember, too, that these are just complaints. The Attorney General's office still needs to do its legwork and then connect, I would assume, with the town attorneys or with Town Hall for any further documentation or information. And then they will, roll an action down to us, and we would need to communicate that with the public body.
Their
And-
first step is
Yeah.
to ascertain whether or not it is worthy of an investigation. That'll be the first one. They'll either take it on, or they'll say that there's no merit.
Yeah,
But that's in their hands. That has nothing to do with you.
yes.
My understanding of this was that we were to take these packets, understand the completeness of the packet as it related to the acquisition that's in here, and then the action would be actually just sending this to the Attorney General. That's my understanding
Yes.
of an action, understanding it's complete and filled, and that we will be sending it off. That's the action.
At
My
this,
understanding
at this
of the-
time.
Yeah, so like I said, my understanding is that we have to respond with what our action that the body is.
Sending this to the Attorney General.
And that is
And it's
what.
complete.
And we're,
But that doesn't
we're
address
voting
what
to,
the,
we're
my
voting-
interpretation is, just a moment, Mr. Chair. My interpretation is that the action that we have to notify the Attorney General is what action has been taken, not just sending it to them. Because it's not, if we just send it to them, it's not saying we've done anything to potentially rectify the situation in the future. So the purpose of an action is to change a behavior or an action that was incorrect or improperly done. So if we acknowledge if something was done incorrectly, we would acknowledge what that issue was, what steps we have taken to rectify that in the future. And some of those may already have been taken by adjustments to the way we run the meeting. But we should verbalize or outline what those changes have been for the Attorney General to review. And at that point, once they review that, if they find that nothing has been done incorrectly or that the action taken is acceptable in their eyes, then it falls between the Attorney General's office and the complainant to escalate that further.
but the Attorney General's office needs to review this, and we need to vote to authorize our staff to send this stuff over to them to investigate in order for them to say, yes, you have a violation, no, you don't, there's no recourse.
I understand.
So we're not going to put together something, like we're just, this is gathering all the information, recognizing what has been complained, what the complaint is, and then actions requested, and we just send that, we push that off to the AG's office.
Where are the actions taken?
There's
Because
no
that's-
action as of yet,
There
because
are-
it's
there
just
are
like,
actually
so
some
it's
of them
just,
on each one
Yeah.
individually, and sometimes your actions, some of these will be that,
This-
that it may not be applicable in the context of the open meeting law. I think when you start looking at them, you'll see there's enough material there for you to be able to to embrace what you're saying here, too.
Okay, so let's just walk through the first one. 24 Point Pleasant. So I believe the complaint was we used an inappropriate process to approve a fence, and the complainant is suggesting that it was within the Wetlands Protection Act for us to approve a fence because it blocked the access of wildlife.
There is no mention of fence in the complaint.
no,
It doesn't matter, it's about a fence.
No, the
Excuse
attorney-
me, allow me
the
to
Attorney
finish.
General's
no,
office
excuse me,
is gonna
excuse me,
want
we're going to follow,
specific-
excuse me,
You're
Ann, we're
replying
going
to
to
the
follow
information in
Robert's
here.
Rules of Order from this point forward. Everything is going to go through me. This is not going to become an out-of-control meeting. You will ask me if you want to speak. So would you like to speak?
Yes, please, I would like to speak. Although the complaint isn't directly about a fence, it's related to a fence. So the complaint has to do, at its base, that we used an inappropriate process when approving a fence. In the complaint, it's about the process, not the fence. But the evidence or the backup to this complaint is a series of email exchanges about the fence and about what the Wetlands Protection Act covers regarding a fence and how wildlife transits back and forth with a fence, because sometimes it's in and sometimes it's out. And if I remember correctly, this particular fence was approved through an administrative approval, and the complaint is that an administrative approval is, I'm using my words, an unfair or inappropriate process because it doesn't allow for notice and doesn't allow for anyone affected by the process to have a say. And that the complaint suggests that it would be more appropriate to go through an RDA or an NOI so that public notice and so that people can talk about it. Am I?
Ann?
I'm going to leave the meeting. That's incorrect. You can let me know when the meeting's over and I will lock the door.
Okay, so moving along. Yes, Commissioner Jewell?
Robin, just into the mic.
All right, so all of this transpired on emails.
Through each one. We're just voting to receipt. Nope, sorry, you're out of order. Out of order, thank you. So we're acknowledging receipt of the violation and voting to authorize staff reply. That is all we are doing. That is all that is on this agenda. And you have the packets in front of you, and we're going to go through each item. So the first one is action item A. Do we have a motion here for acknowledgement of the violation and authorize staff to reply? The staff has put together everything for us. It is in front of you. It is going to the AG's office for review. That is all we are doing right now until the AG's office has reviewed each of these and coordinates with the town for next action items, whether it is correcting a process or so forth. That is all we are discussing. That is on the agenda, and that's it. Yes.
We're not going to discuss the fence at all, and if it,
We're not discussing fences, we're not discussing specifics of each of these. But they're in front of you, and we're doing exactly what is on the action items.
So Joey, I could just restate what you said. You want us to make comment on whether or not there's completeness of the documents as it pertains to the complaint. You would like us to approve sending this document to the AG's office. And finally, the plan is that we would action on those things where there are violations to be found.
Yes, the Attorney General's office will get back in touch with the town and the departments. And if we were deficient in some specific way, there will be corrective action. We have municipal council for this reason. We're not creating any kind of recourse on this.
A question to the chair.
This is beyond our scope. We are wetlands, and we are just, there's a violation that comes in, this can happen on anything. Someone can have an issue with something and say, you know what, that's a violation, this is a violation, that's a violation. It needs to go through the appropriate review process. So what we're doing here has been talked about with town council and with the appropriate folks, our town manager. So this is how we are proceeding. We're acknowledging the receipt of violation, and we're voting to authorize the staff to send this off to the AG's office for each of these. That's all we are doing. We're not getting into the weeds on this.
A question to the chair.
Yes.
This is the complete packet. There'll be absolutely nothing else, no words, no editorial by the staff.
No, as I said in the notes before, these are only complaints. No public input is allowed. This is what is going to the AG's office.
With nothing else.
Nothing else. But Ann has put this together as the department head, and this is everything that is there. You'll find your communications are all in here. Everything is in here for the AG to review this and make a determination.
With all due respect, I have direct evidence that we've suggested as a commission a response before an editorial comment was added by the staff without our knowing. So I'm just asking to be very specific and ensure that this packet, as it is, complete with nothing else.
This is what is going to the AG.
So my next question, because it is a confusion, I believe part of the process suggests that the complainant receives a copy of the packet and they have to respond as to whether they're satisfied. So is their response that they're satisfied that it's a complete packet, or satisfied with what the answer is? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Satisfied with, as far as what the town is submitting to the AG's office?
Yeah, I don't know what they're saying they're satisfied with, what we submit or what the answer is.
No, what we submit, because we have to provide any kind of information, public records, communications, all of that stuff, as we all understand with the open meeting law, all of that stuff goes to the AG's office. And they're going to, once again, they're going to review this stuff. Any specific questions, they will communicate with the town. And then if something is directed back at the Conservation Commission, it'll show up on our agenda again. I can guarantee that. I'm sorry? Good.
So if we did do something wrong,
Um,
we will be advised.
Yeah, I mean, if the AG's office reviews this, researches it, reaches out to the appropriate parties, they're going to compile a report and recommendations. And we will as Ann had mentioned before, we've already curtailed, some of the items by rearranging our agenda and becoming compliant in that aspect. Whereas our agendas, which, I mean, none of us really knew that before. We just, a simple restructure of our agenda has changed our efficiency, has changed processes for the better. So that is where we're at with this. So,
Mr. Chair, may I? I have a question.
yeah.
I'm looking at the third to last page contained in the first complaint. It's an email from Carrie Brendan, the Assistant Attorney General, in response to Ann Morgan. And it reads in the second sentence of the paragraph attached, she provided an extension for the open meeting law complaint filed
Yes.
by Karen Bartholomew with the hopes that the parties involved can use the additional time to reach a mutually agreeable resolution to the complaints.
Yep.
The final paragraph from the Assistant Attorney General states, note that the Division of Open Government is charged with ensuring the compliance of the open meeting law. They do not, I'm paraphrasing, stating they, quote, we do not review whether a public body complied with separate laws that may require a public hearing in specific situations. So the way that I read that is we have to provide them with what action we have taken. In this draft, I am not seeing an outline of what action we have taken. So I'm looking to formalize what that action taken was. Because compiling this and sending this to the Attorney General
Yep.
for them to tell us if this is acceptable does not answer what action we have taken as a board.
You have to submit all of this stuff in order for them to review everything and implement, this recommendation or that recommendation. And, I mean, because like I said, I mean, somebody could just make a mention of some arbitrary item on an agenda, and if we go ahead and start changing things, we could end up changing ourselves for being non-compliant. So you put together this here, and you have to, you start that process, and that's what that process is. The complaint goes in, and then you compile everything, and you have to submit all of that stuff to the Attorney General's office.
So, Mr. Chairman, and this is my interpretation of your answer. In a situation where we feel that we have not done anything incorrectly, our answer to the action taken would be none, as the board felt that nothing was incorrectly done in accordance with the open meeting law.
Yeah.
That would be providing what our action would be to take. This is just outlining a review of what the violation was and what the requested action was. There is no action taken section. So
What we're-
that's where,
What we're doing is what we have been, what is being recommended by the folks that work for our town. These have been reviewed
I'm
by
not
our
seeing
town
action
attorney.
taken.
These have been reviewed by our town attorney. And this is what is getting sent to the AG's office. I mean, I don't think
Disagree
that
with
I don't think that our town attorney or our town manager would put us in a position where we're continuing to be deficient.
I think that not responding with a provided action taken makes us deficient.
Joey, if I may?
Yes.
So Hayden, to your point, okay, so what we're looking at here is that they are simply going to rule on whether or not there's been an open meeting law violation. That's it, right? So if there was, the actionable item would be to work on any sort of public hearing that is required in order to meet the public hearing. So if there's a finding that there is a public hearing is necessary in order to answer the complaint, and then they're not ruling on anything associated with what's going on here, right? They're not ruling on whether or not this was appropriate or not. They're simply ruling on whether or not it was an open meeting violation. If it turns out there has been, then it's been our responsibility to put forth and follow through in a public to meet that public hearing, that public notice, and to meet all the requirements that we have for all of these discussions that we may or may not have done. That's it. So we action on what the Attorney General says is a non-compliance. If there is compliance, then there's nothing for us to do.
Yeah.
It's,
So,
There
I'm not
hasn't
saying
been,
we're not going to action on these things. I'm simply saying
may I
that,
respond?
these are complaints.
Yeah.
They are not specific violations. There has been no determination on violation. So there's no, right now, there is nothing for us to do except for what is on the agenda.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I respond? Mm-hmm. According to the Assistant Attorney General, quote, "We do not review whether a public body complied with separate laws that may require a public hearing in a specific situation." Rich, if I understood your interpretation, you're stating that the Attorney General will tell us whether we have or have not been found in compliance. Based upon the Assistant Attorney General's response to Ann Morgan, they are telling us that is not what they do. That is the third to last page.
Aiden, we're doing two things here, all of us. We're voting to accept and receipt of a violation complaint. And we are voting to authorize the staff or this town to submit this information to the Attorney General. That are the two things that we're doing on each of these. Yes.
Were we supposed, again, open meeting law, I don't know how to ask these questions, but were we supposed to have discussed this before the administrator made a decision? Like the fence, I mean, is it a really?
We're not discussing
major thing?
specifics, no.
Because this fence is all over the lake.
I understand. We're
Should
not
we have
discussing
had
the
this-
specifics of this. We
Not
are
tonight,
voting,
but should we have, so the complaint wouldn't have been made?
no.
I would point out that whether we want to insist on an RDA for all fences going forward is an action
But
item
that's
that
not-
has to be on the, has to
Put
be
it-
on
put
an
it forth,
agenda for
Fred.
an open meeting. It's not part of this discussion.
Yes. We're
And
doing
it's
two
not on our,
things.
doing that kind of thing is not on the agenda for this meeting, and therefore, we shouldn't even be discussing it.
However, our action could be discussing a possible solution to possible violations.
We're not discussing
We're-
any of that.
And our action could be including on our future agenda a line item to discuss making situations or recommendations of a requirement for all actions or all construction of fences on the lake to be required as an RDA filing.
We're
It's
not
not,
dis-
it's
we're
not
not
discussing
discuss-
whether,
no.
and voting on whether we are taking that action. It is stating
No, I
that
don't
our
even want
action
to, no,
would
we're
be
not
to
even
put that
talking
on
about
the
it.
agenda
Not
in the
even
future.
talking about it.
We, yeah.
Submit what you want on the agenda. Submit anyone in the future who wants something on the agenda. Where we need to go right now is accepting the violation complaint and voting to authorize the town staff to submit this stuff to the Attorney General. So with that, do we have a motion for action item A?
Joey, would you mind if I made an action item for all of them? Because I feel the record is complete here. And we could just make one vote. So my motion is to approve for communication to the Attorney General, action items A through E, and the packet be sent to the complainant as well.
Commissioner Parent has made a motion for action items A, B, C, D, and E to be receipt of accept a violation complaint and to vote to authorize the staff to reply. So that is to submit the packets, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
As is.
Commissioner Parent as first. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Bach with the second on that. And a roll call, please. Commissioner Brown.
No.
Commissioner Jewell. Commissioner Sharon.
Yes.
Commissioner Bach.
Yes.
Commissioner Cirillo.
Absolutely no.
Commissioner Parent.
Yes.
Commissioner Wigglesworth is a yes.
Wow.
Okay.
What a
Our
setup.
next meeting date is on June 26, 2023, at the police station. This is adjourned at 7:05.
Wow, that was really a mistake. That was a waste.